"I believe you need this gift more than I do," said the little girl to the CEO sitting alone on Christmas Eve. The snow had fallen all day, and by night, the park was buried in white. Trees stood bare, their branches heavy with frost, and the walking paths disappeared beneath a soft, glistening blanket. Christmas lights flickered from lampposts, their colors muted by the fog of cold air. It was Christmas Eve, and the world was wrapped in warmth, except for one man. Ethan Maddox sat alone on a bench near the edge of the park, where the path curved around a frozen fountain. His dark coat was immaculate, his charcoal scarf tucked neatly beneath his collar. Snow clung to his shoes, to his cuffs, but he didn't move to brush it off. He sat still, upright, like a statue forgotten by time. Beside him sat a gift box, square, carefully wrapped in silver paper and tied with a navy ribbon. Untouched. He did not glance at it. Around him, life moved in cheerful loops. Families passed by, children dragging sleds, laughter carried by the wind. The distant sound of carolers drifted from a nearby street. But Ethan remained unmoved, his gaze fixed on nothing in particular. His eyes were red, though he didn't cry. He hadn't cried in years. At 34, Ethan Maddox was the name behind one of New York's most successful investment firms. He had money, reputation, power. But none of it softened the cold inside him tonight. Christmas had always been the hardest. Raised in the foster system, Ethan had never known stockings over the fireplace or the smell of cinnamon from the kitchen. What he remembered was the silence of shared bedrooms, the way other children clutched their donated toys, and the long, aching wait for a family that never came. Every December, that ache returned. Success hadn't filled the space. It had only given him better clothes to wear while feeling empty. He watched a young couple pass by, their toddler bundled in a puffy coat, squealing at the snow. The father lifted the child and kissed her forehead. Ethan blinked and looked away. Then footsteps, light ones. He barely had time to react when a small figure appeared in front of him. A little girl, no older than 5. Her coat was red and puffy, her cheeks pink from the cold. A knitted hat with a fluffy pom-pom covered her golden curls. She looked up at him with wide, serious eyes. "I believe you need this gift more than I do," she said. Ethan blinked. What?" But the girl had already stepped forward, reaching into her pocket. She pulled out a tiny package wrapped in wrinkled tissue paper and placed it gently on his lap. "There," she said with a nod, as if completing a very important task. Before he could say anything else, she turned and dashed back toward the sidewalk. A woman stood nearby, scanning the park with worried eyes. Her coat was long, her posture alert. As the girl ran toward her, she crouched down and caught her in her arms, whispering something. The girl giggled and pointed back at Ethan. The woman looked over. Their eyes met briefly, hers filled with apology, curiosity, maybe concern. She gave him a small nod, then turned to guide her daughter away. Ethan sat frozen. He looked down at the gift in his lap. It was small, messily tied with a bit of ribbon that didn't quite hold. The paper had tiny snowmen drawn on it, a child's work. His gloved hand hovered over it. Then slowly, almost involuntarily, his fingers closed around the package. His breath caught. He had received many gifts in his life. Corporate watches, engraved pens, signed bottles of wine, but none like this. None that made his hands tremble. Around him, and the snow kept falling. The lights kept blinking, and laughter still echoed faintly through the park. But Ethan Maddox, once a boy forgotten, now a man remembered, sat quietly on a bench, holding something impossibly small. And something inside him shifted. Around him, the snow kept falling. The lights kept blinking, and laughter still echoed faintly through the park. But Ethan Maddox, once a boy forgotten, now a man remembered, sat quietly on a bench, holding something impossibly small. And something inside him shifted. The tissue paper crinkled softly in Ethan's hands as he untied the small, uneven ribbon. Each movement felt heavier than it should have, as if something invisible had settled on his chest. He peeled back the paper slowly, carefully, as if rushing might break whatever was inside. Inside the gift lay a cream-colored handkerchief, small, soft, slightly wrinkled. It had clearly been sewn by hand, and though the stitching was uneven, at the very corner was a single word embroidered in red thread: hope. Beneath the handkerchief, a folded slip of paper rested like a whisper. Ethan picked it up and unfolded it with gloved fingers. The handwriting was large, slightly crooked, each letter pressed too hard into the page with the determined grip of a child. Even if you're sad, someone still sees you. Merry Christmas. Love, Avery. He stared at the words. The wind moved through the trees behind him, the distant laughter of families echoing faintly in his ears. But for Ethan, the world had gone quiet. He did not know this girl, Avery. He had never seen her before tonight. She did not know his name, his past, or the weight he carried like a stone beneath the surface of his calm exterior. And yet, she saw him. He looked down again at the handkerchief, the word hope catching the light from the park's nearest lamppost. The letters were slightly slanted, not perfect, but bold, honest. For a long moment, he could not breathe. Something pushed at his chest, not panic, not pain, just presence. Like the sudden awareness that someone had been standing quietly in a room you thought was empty. He sat back slowly against the bench, and memory rushed in. The last gift he could remember receiving was a second-hand toy truck, blue plastic, one wheel chipped, handed to him by a kind-eyed nurse. The night before, he was moved to another foster home. He had thanked her too enthusiastically, even though he had known she had not picked it out herself. Still, he had held on to it like it was a promise. He lost that truck 3 months later. The family he stayed with had thrown it out during a cleaning day. They hadn't asked. He had not asked for it back. After that, he learned not to hold on to things. He learned not to expect gifts or gestures or kindness given freely. Life, especially for a child like he had been, quiet and reserved, not especially cute or clever, did not often offer such things. Until tonight, until this. A child he had never met had walked up to him without fear or hesitation and given him a gift. Something small, something handmade, something entirely hers. And she had looked him in the eye, not with pity, not with confusion, but with certainty. I believe you need this gift more than I do. The words came back to him, uninvited, and struck just as deeply the second time. Ethan looked out across the park, the snow still drifting lazily through the air, softening every edge of the world around him. His eyes scanned the path, searching for red. There, in the distance, moving slowly near the far end of the path, a small figure in a red coat walked hand in hand with a taller woman in a long wool coat. The golden pom-pom on her hat bounced lightly with each step. They were leaving the park. Ethan stood. He did not think. He simply moved. The handkerchief still gripped in one hand, the note folded carefully in the other, he stepped off the bench and onto the snow-dusted path, boots crunching softly beneath him. His breath fogged the air in front of his face as he walked, quickening his pace slightly, his eyes never leaving the pair ahead. He did not know what he was going to say. He only knew he had to say something. He had to see her again. Not for answers, not even for gratitude, just to hold on to the single moment that had broken through its silence he had carried since boyhood. Someone had seen him, and for the first time in a very long time, he wanted to be seen again. The snow that night reminded him of another December, one etched so deeply into memory, it never truly left. Ethan had been 9 years old. He was smaller than most boys his age, thin arms, hollow cheeks, eyes too serious for someone who had barely lived a decade. The group home had been an old, creaky building that smelled of soup and floor wax, the radiators clicking loudly whenever the cold crept in. The staff tried. They weren't cruel, but they weren't family. And in December of 1995, Ethan had let himself hope. Just once. A couple had come to visit, the Thompsons, late 30s, warm smiles, gentle voices. They spent the afternoon with him in the common room, watching as he carefully pieced together a puzzle on the carpet. The woman asked his favorite color. The man brought him a chocolate bar and asked if he liked dogs. They said they'd be back. They said they wanted to talk about adoption. They said they saw something special in him. That night, Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor of his shared bedroom, a blank sheet of paper in front of him, markers scattered at his side. He drew slowly, carefully, 2 stick figures holding hands with a smaller one between them. Above them, a crooked Christmas tree and uneven snowflakes filled the sky. He signed it, "To my new family, love Ethan." He folded it into a card and placed it on the nightstand beside his bed. The next morning, he wore the only button-up shirt he owned, too big, with sleeves he had to roll. He combed his hair flat with water and sat by the window in the waiting room. The snow started falling at noon. He waited until dinner. They never came. No call, no message, nothing. Later that evening, the director told him gently, "Sometimes families change their minds, as if that could soften the blow." Ethan didn't cry. He just went to bed, the card still in his hand, and stared out the window as snow fell, coating the world in silence. That was the day he learned. Promises could disappear. Love could be offered, then withdrawn. You could do everything right, smile, be polite, stay quiet, and still be left behind. After that, Ethan changed. He became quieter, harder. He stopped waiting by windows, stopped asking questions, stopped drawing cards. Eventually, he stopped hoping. Years passed. He aged out of the system, got into college on scholarship, built a business from the ground up, worked 20-hour days, outperformed everyone in the room, and it worked. By 34, he had everything success promised: a penthouse, tailored suits, sleek watches, a company with his name on the glass. But no matter how high he climbed, the boy by the window never left. He still saw him in late nights, in his own reflection, in holiday seasons when joy filled the air, but none of it touched him. That small invisible ache never fully faded. Not sharp, just constant. Like a door inside him that never fully closed. And then came last night. The little girl in the red coat. The small gift wrapped in wrinkled tissue paper. The hand-sewn handkerchief stitched with the word hope. The note, simple and devastating. Even if you're sad, someone still sees you. It cracked something inside him, quietly. No dramatic tears, just stillness. And in that stillness, he felt it, the weight of being seen. For the first time in years, without having to earn it, without needing to prove anything. That was what undid him, not the gesture itself, but the fact that it came freely, from someone who owed him nothing, from a child. This morning, the park looked different. The snow had stopped early, leaving a soft crust over the paths that crunched under his shoes. The crooked bench was still there. A few scattered footprints remained, already beginning to fade. Ethan stood before the bench, hands in his coat pockets, eyes searching the path. No red coat, no golden pom-pom hat, just the usual morning crowd, early walkers, a jogger, an old man feeding birds that never came. He sat down slowly, the cold seeping through the wood into his bones. And he waited, not with expectation, not even with hope, but with something quieter, a need not to forget. He watched the path she had taken. He replayed her words. He held on to the memory like he had once held that folded card in his hand, the one he never got to give. This time, though, he would not let it be discarded. Not this time. Not her. The next afternoon, snow still blanketed the park, soft and undisturbed in patches. Ethan walked without purpose, hands in his coat pockets, thoughts spinning. He had told himself it was just a walk, but he knew why he was there. As he neared the path where the bench sat, he saw something new. A small folding table stood under a street lamp with a hand-drawn sign, a free cookies and cocoa. Merry Christmas. Behind it stood a little girl in a red coat, carefully placing cookies into paper bags. Her hat with the fuzzy white pom-pom bobbed with each movement. Avery. Beside her was a woman, tall, honey blonde hair in a braid, wearing a gray coat, her posture composed, her eyes kind but tired. Claire. Ethan stopped, watched. He wasn't sure whether to walk over, but before he could decide, Avery looked up. Her eyes lit up. You came back. She ran across the snow and held up a steaming paper cup. Coco, I saved you one. Ethan knelt slightly, accepting it. Thank you. It has 3 marshmallows. Mommy says 4 is too much. He smiled. She's probably right. Claire approached, brushing snow from her gloves. Sorry, she doesn't believe in personal space when it comes to Coco. No apology needed, Ethan said. She's got good instincts. Claire offered a smile. You're the one from the bench. I am. You seemed like someone who needed something warm. He looked down at the cocoa, then back up. This helps. They stood in silence a moment, then Claire gestured toward a cafe across the street. Warm fire, quiet. We usually take a break there. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. I'd like that. The cafe smelled of cinnamon and clove. A fire crackled near the back. They chose a booth by the hearth. Avery slid in first, carefully laying out her mittens. Claire followed, and Ethan took the seat across from them. They didn't talk about the gift. They talked about cookies, about how Avery liked star shapes best, and how Claire always burned the first batch, about how they gave out treats each Christmas instead of buying presents. Giving small things, Claire said. That's our tradition. Ethan listened more than he spoke. He watched Avery rest her head on her mother's shoulder. He watched Claire's hand automatically tuck a curl behind her daughter's ear. There was comfort in their rhythm. After a while, Ethan finally spoke. Last night, that was the first time in years someone gave me something without expecting anything in return. Claire looked up, her gaze steady. It was just a handkerchief. It wasn't, he said quietly. She didn't press. Instead, she reached into her wallet and pulled out a small folded square of yellowed paper. I want to show you something." She unfolded it and laid it on the table. A child's drawing. 2 tall stick figures, a small one between them, a crooked Christmas tree, and a red-nosed reindeer off to the side. Across the bottom, "Merry Christmas, you deserve one." Ethan stared. "I drew this when I was 9, Claire said. "My mom worked in foster care. One year, she brought a boy home for a week. He barely spoke. I left this outside his door." Ethan's fingers trembled slightly. "I kept that drawing for years," he said. "It was the only thing I carried from one place to another." Claire's breath caught. "It was you." He nodded slowly, eyes still on the drawing. There were no big reactions, no swelling music, just quiet. Avery, sensing something, peeked up from her cocoa. "Are you two talking in secret?" Claire laughed, wiping at her eye. "No, sweetheart, just remembering something kind." Ethan smiled, a real gentle one. The fire crackled. Outside, the world moved on. But in that booth, something long buried in Ethan stirred back to life. Not loudly, just enough to be felt, just enough to stay. Claire sat cross-legged on the worn carpet of her small living room, surrounded by old cardboard boxes stacked in the corner. Boxes she had not opened in years. The room was dimly lit, the soft glow from the nearby lamp catching on dust motes that danced in the quiet air. Outside, the snow fell again, gentler this time, brushing against the window like a memory trying to return. She reached into the largest box, labeled in her mother's handwriting. Foster Notes, 1990s. Her mother, before she passed, had worked as a volunteer in the foster care system, often taking in children for short periods, especially during the holidays. Claire dug carefully through old manila folders, skimming names she vaguely recalled. Michael, Jasmine, Tayo. But one folder stopped her. It was thin and faded, edges soft from years of storage. The paperclip was rusted. On the front, written in blue ink, was the name Ethan M. Temporary placement. December 1995. Her breath caught. She opened it. Inside were a few brief notes. Age 9, introverted. Transferred mid-December from Oak Ridge home to a new placement due to availability. Next to the typed information was a photo, black and white, slightly curled. A boy with dark hair, solemn eyes, lips pressed in a thin line. There was no smile, but she knew that face. Claire sat back slowly, pressing the photo to her chest. It was him, Ethan. He had stayed with them just for that 1 week, quiet, shadow-like, always clutching a red scarf and staring out the window. She remembered him now, remembered how she had tried to make him smile, how she had drawn that ridiculous reindeer and slid it under his door. And now, almost 30 years later, that same boy had sat across from her, holding her daughter's hand-sewn gift like it meant the world. She picked up her phone. The next day, they met at the same cafe, tucked into a quiet street just past the florist's shop. The windows were fogged again, the scent of cinnamon rolls hanging in the air. Claire arrived first, clutching the folder like it held something sacred. Ethan walked in 5 minutes later, his coat dusted with snow, his scarf pulled loose around his neck. When he saw her, he paused, something unspoken pesting between them, then moved to the table. Claire didn't waste time. She slid the folder across to him gently. "I found something I think you should see." Ethan hesitated, but then opened it. His fingers brushed the photo first. He stared down at it, silent. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. "That's me." Claire nodded. "You stayed with us for a week. I was 9. I remembered your eyes, but not your name. Not until now." He looked up, eyes slightly glassy. I remember the house. Your mom gave me hot cocoa every night. You gave me that drawing. She smiled, eyes wet. I didn't think it mattered. It did, he said, voice catching. I kept that reindeer until I was nearly 24. Folded it so many times it tore apart. I tried taping it back together. It was the only thing I ever saved. Claire reached across the table, her hand landing gently on his. I was just a kid. I didn't know that something so small could keep someone from feeling invisible. Ethan didn't move at first. Then he turned his hand over, slowly, so that her fingers rested in his palm. He held them, not tightly, not dramatically, just held them, like someone who finally understood what it meant to be seen and needed a moment to feel it. The fire beside them crackled softly. Claire's thumb moved once across his skin, a quiet motion, instinctive and kind. Neither spoke. They did not need to, for in that small cafe, surrounded by the ghosts of old winters and the warmth of something new, a man who had once been forgotten and a girl who once tried to help him remember what kindness felt like, sat together, not as strangers, not as guests of fate, but as two people rediscovering something fragile, something human, something whole. The community center still smelled faintly of paint and wood glue, its newly finished stage glowing under soft overhead lights. Claire stood at its edge, clipboard in hand, her blonde hair tied in a loose bun. Her eyes moved over the room, rows of folding chairs, half-sewn costumes, and children's scripts covered in doodles. This was her dream, a theater program for underprivileged kids, a place where stories could heal, where children without stages in life could find a spotlight. She had poured herself into it, workshops, rehearsals, grants, every inch of energy stitched into this space. Then came the blog post, anonymous, calmly worded, vicious. Is Claire Everett's play really hers? It asked. The piece accused her of copying a forgotten children's play, implying she'd repackaged it under the guise of charity. It was full of cropped quotes and timelines that made just enough sense to sow doubt. By afternoon, 2 sponsors had emailed her. Pending review, we will pause all funding. We regret to inform you. Claire sat alone on the tiny stage she had built, reading those words. She didn't reply, didn't argue online, and didn't defend herself in the comments. Instead, she stayed late at the center, restapling scripts, sorting crayons, wiping glitter from windowsills. If the story mattered, she told herself, it would survive this. The next day, she picked Avery up from school. Her daughter sat quiet in the back seat, hugging a sketch pad tightly. At home, Avery went straight to her room. Later, Claire found her at the kitchen table, crayons scattered everywhere. On the page was a colorful drawing, 3 children on stage beneath a big yellow sun. In the center of the sun was one word in big letters, Mom. Claire sat beside her. Avery didn't look up. Some kids at school said their parents saw stuff online about your play. Claire swallowed hard. They said you stole it, Avery added. But I told them you didn't. You don't even take extra ketchup from restaurants. Claire let out a breath, part laughter, part ache. I made this, Avery said, pointing to the sun. Because you're the light, Mommy. You help things grow, even when people are mean. Claire pulled her into her arms. That night, after Avery fell asleep, Claire cried, quietly. 2 days later, Ethan stepped out of a black car in front of his firm's legal office. He had seen the blog post, and then he had watched everything Claire didn't say. The silence, the grace, the quiet strength. He didn't ask permission. He just handed the case to his legal team. Defend her. Not because she asked, because it's right. By the next morning, a statement was issued under Ethan's name. It included copyright records, dated script drafts from over a year ago, volunteer testimonies, and emails with educators. The anonymous blogger's identity was quietly revealed. A former collaborator Claire had let go after multiple boundary violations. A cease and desist letter followed. So did an apology from one of the sponsors. By week's end, Claire's funding was restored with interest. She didn't hear it from Ethan. A colleague called her mid-morning. "Did you see what Ethan Maddox did?" Claire stared at her screen, hands trembling. She called him. He answered on the second ring. "You did something," she said. "I did what anyone should," Ethan replied, "for someone who deserves better." She was quiet, then almost whispering, "I'm not used to being protected." He paused. "I used to say that too," he said, "but no one should get used to being alone." Her eyes filled again, but this time the tears came not from fear or exhaustion. They came from something else.
The quiet, life-altering relief of being seen and believed without ever having to ask. The email came on a quiet Wednesday morning. Claire was sitting at a small kitchen table, still in her oversized sweater, a half-drunk cup of tea going cold beside her laptop. She clicked into her inbox, expecting nothing more than a few community center updates, until she saw the subject line, "Ari, Children's Theater Program, Formal Apology and Reinstatement of Support." Her breath caught. She opened it. The message was polite, professional, but clear. The organization had reviewed all evidence, acknowledged the false nature of the claims, and expressed deep regret for their premature withdrawal of support. They offered not only to restore their original sponsorship, but to increase it, along with promotional backing for the program's winter showcase. Claire read the email twice, then a third time. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her tea. Outside, snow flurried lightly against the windows. Inside, the silence cracked with something like disbelief, and then a smile. But it was short-lived, because the question that had lingered quietly in her chest since the first blog post returned in full. Who had done this for her? She hadn't spoken up, hadn't fought publicly, but someone had, and there was only one person she could imagine moving quietly behind the scenes, not asking for thanks, not seeking credit. She picked up her phone. Ethan answered almost immediately. "Claire, you didn't tell me," she said. A pause. "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean," she said gently. "The copyright statement, the legal team, the investigation. It was you, wasn't it?" Another pause. Then his voice came, low and calm. "Not everyone is lucky enough to have someone step forward when the world turns unfair. But you deserve that. More than most." Claire closed her eyes. "I'm not used to being protected," she whispered. On the other end, there was silence. Then Ethan spoke, his voice quieter now, as if confessing something to the night. "I'm not used to believing I deserve love," he said, "but you make me want to learn." Those words hung in the air, raw, unpolished, unguarded, and they broke something open in her. Claire didn't respond right away. There were no perfect words for moments like this, just truth, and the ache of hearing it spoken out loud. "Ethan," she finally said, voice steady, "you've been protecting people your whole life, even when no one protected you." He let out a soft breath. "It's different with you." Her lips curled into a smile, gentle and real.
It's different for me too. Over the next few weeks, Ethan became more than just a presence. He became a pattern. He showed up after rehearsals with warm drinks and new markers for the kids. On Saturdays, he helped set up chairs before the children arrived. Claire would catch him kneeling to tie a child's shoelaces or laughing softly as Avery showed him her latest drawing of a dragon in a tutu. He never made it about himself, never asked for praise. He was simply there. He helped Avery with a science project about snowflakes, stood at the back of the room during rehearsals, clapped the loudest when a shy child remembered their line. And when Claire caught his eye across the room, he always gave her the same small, quiet smile. The kind that said, "I'm not going anywhere." The town began to notice, not with gossip or whispers, but with warmth. The once reclusive CEO, the man in the expensive coat, now helping children paint cardboard sets. No headlines, no press releases. Just a man slowly weaving himself into something he never thought he deserved. A life. A family. Claire didn't ask for more, but every time Ethan showed up without being asked, she felt it. A kind of love that didn't need to be declared to be known. The apartment glowed with uneven light from a string of old Christmas bulbs draped over the windows and wrapped around a tiny, slightly leaning tree. Claire and Avery sat on the floor, surrounded by handmade ornaments, popsicle stick snowflakes, crayon-colored angels, glittery stars. Claire knelt beside the tree, laughing as Avery tried once more to hang her cardboard gingerbread man on a branch that bent under its weight. Her blonde hair was tied in a crooked ponytail, her cheeks pink with excitement. "Mommy," she said proudly, "this is our best tree ever." Claire smiled, adjusting the star on top, also handmade, also crooked. "It's perfect," she said, "just like tonight." Outside, snow fell steadily, blanketing the city in quiet. Then the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," Avery shouted, dashing across the room in her socks. Claire stood slowly, brushing glitter off her sweater. Her heart fluttered, not from nerves, but something softer. Avery pulled the door open, and there he was. Ethan stood in the hallway, his coat dusted with snow, breath forming small clouds in the cold. He held a small pine tree wrapped in white lights, and a modest gift bag dangled from one hand. But more than that, something in his eyes had changed. Warmth. Real warmth. "You came back," Avery squealed, arms flung wide. Ethan smiled, kneeling to her level as he set the tree down. "Not just back," he said gently. "I'm here to stay." Avery wrapped her arms around his neck in a hug that nearly knocked off his scarf. Claire stood in the doorway, watching, her hand resting on the frame. She didn't speak. She just let it happen. Ethan rose, meeting her gaze. He held out the gift bag. "It's nothing big, just something small." Claire took it, their fingers brushing. She smiled. "Come in. We're just finishing up." Later, the three of them sat on the couch, cocoa in hand, a soft Christmas playlist playing in the background. Avery was nestled between them under a red fleece blanket with the white snowflakes. The new tree stood beside the old one, both glowing with mismatched lights. Ethan rested his hand gently on Avery's shoulder. Claire leaned into his other side, her head resting against him, golden hair brushing his sleeve. Outside, snow fell. Inside, peace settled. Not the kind that ends stories, but the kind that says something new has begun. Ethan looked down at Avery, already half asleep, Coco untouched, one sock slipping from her foot. He let out a soft laugh, then glanced at Claire. She smiled back, tired but whole. In the quiet, Ethan whispered the words that had stayed with him since that night on the bench. "I believe you were right."
Claire raised her head. I needed that gift more than anyone. Her eyes glistened. She didn't hide it. She reached for his hand and laced her fingers with his. No grand promises, no speeches, just presence, just staying. There, on a well-worn couch, under the warm glow of imperfect lights, sat 3 people. Not perfect, but together. A woman who gave without asking, a child who gave without fear, and a man who once believed he was meant to be alone. Now he knew better. He belonged. They all did. A family, not by name, not yet, but by everything that mattered more. And in that quiet room on Christmas Eve, something found its way home. If this story touched your heart, even just for a moment, we invite you to stay connected with us. We believe in the quiet power of kindness, healing, and the unexpected families we find along the way. If you felt something in Ethan, Claire, or little Avery, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that warm the soul and remind us we're never truly alone. Subscribe, like, and share to help keep the light going for you and for someone else who might need it today.